Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Digital's Growthcast, the podcast where we break down web design, digital marketing, and business growth strategies. I'm Cheyenne Kelly, Marketing Communications Manager here at The Digital, an award winning web design and digital marketing agency based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Joining me today is Javier Lozano, a fractional CMO and CRO who helps founder led B2B tech and tech enabled service companies build predictable, scalable go to market engines. And as a former startup CMO, he's helped scale revenue from 1 million to 20 million in under 4 years by leading multiple go to market motions and building measurable pipeline systems. So today, through Boulder Media Co., he works with founders and CMOs to clarify positioning, stabilize growth, and install repeatable revenue systems that scale beyond the founder. We also have Lauren Clay joining us today. She's our marketing director here at The Digital. Javier, Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be on the show. This is going to be great. Just love the talking shop and geeking out on this stuff.
Same. We're really happy to have you. Awesome. So today's conversation is all about positioning, not just branding as aesthetics, but positioning as a growth strategy. So we're going to unpack how businesses can sharpen their positioning, how they can clarify their message, and actually turn their branding into measurable growth. So to start out, let's start by talking about why most brands tend to blend in as opposed to standing out. So I'll start with you, Javier. Why do you feel so many companies struggle with differentiation in
Yeah,
general?
yeah, no, that's one of the biggest struggle I believe is that as people go to market and they try to come up with a solution, what they're doing is they're looking to see what the market has provided, and they're just essentially either doing one of two things. They're copying what someone else is doing, their competitors, the incumbents. Well, they're doing this, it must be working. And that tends to not always be the thing that actually is going to be successful. The other part of it is that I almost feel as though what they try to do is they try to go complete opposite of what the incumbents or the other companies that are their competitors are out there. And what happens from there is they don't understand what the marketplace is seeking. So instead of actually going to market and saying, "Hey, you know what? Let's talk to a bunch of our competitors. Let me sorry, not competitors, our customers or people that are using this product or service and learn what they're using, what's their frustration, and coming up with a solution that's going to meet those needs." Versus just kind of making assumptions, because honestly, customers will tell you exactly what they want.
Yeah,
Um,
that's crazy too. We have it whenever the conversations that we have, even, when we're just kind of trying to, you know, develop our relationships with our clients or, new companies that we're working with, and we're trying to like pull out those differentiators of like really trying to figure out how we can elevate them. And so often that's not, they don't even really know, or it's not even clear, or they're not confident on what those differentiators are. And yeah, I see that lacking on our side too, how that's just not something that's like crystal clear in their minds too, which is kind of crazy sometimes.
Yeah, and I've seen this with founder led growth a lot too. Is that a founder, and this is not a knock on founders. Like founders are brilliant because they're creating a solution to the marketplace, but they almost get almost fixated of like, but this is what people want. I'm like, but do they? Do they really want that? Because I can tell you right now, if you interviewed a half dozen people that were looking for your solution, they might tell you a little something different. And so I think it's important to be very open to understanding, what is out there. And quite frankly, like I don't think other people see this, is that every company has their own dumpster fire. Like literally, you look under their hood and it is complete chaos. But then they're somehow making it look all good, and it's not really true. And so it's okay that you have your dumpster fire. You got to own it, but you also have to understand that if you're gonna be different from somebody else, really make something where people are like, whoa, okay, you're not even trying to compete against them. You're doing something really weird. Okay, I'm listening. And so they start actually, it's easier to get the attention from those folks versus like, oh, just another competitor.
yeah, that's so good. Kind of leading into that, then, what would you say is the difference between branding and positioning? Maybe some of our listeners don't really understand that from jump.
Okay. So I look at branding as kind of what is your reputation or what people say about you whenever you're not in the room. I look at positioning as the enemy that you're fighting and the hill that you're willing to die on. And that's two ways in how you can look at it. Branding is people are going to be like, man, these guys are great. Like, just use Apple as a great example. You know, their branding, all right, is very strong. People have positive, just positive experiences with them. Like they love the ecosystem and all that stuff. That's strong branding. But when they were coming to market, their positioning was fighting PC. If some of us remember, whenever they would have the PC versus Apple ads, and they would be competing on those TV ads, it was hysterical. But it was the hill that they were willing to die on. They were willing to go throw rocks at these enemies, and then they would bring people along with them. That is positioning, because all of a sudden people are like, oh, you get me. I want to get on that ride as well too, because you're leading the fight and I'm willing to join you on that. That all of a sudden sets your blue ocean.
Yeah, we have that, when we're building websites and we're talking about like aesthetics of the site and how the logo looks, the colors, and kind of helping to build that brand consistently digitally. But then it's sort of a whole other conversation about then how they position themselves in the market, and kind of loops into that differentiation aspect. They do obviously mesh together, and they connect, and you need to be like thinking about them both. But one is kind of how we want to brand ourselves as a company, and then how we're being seen from our customers and how they perceive what value do we bring. And kind of keeping that alignment can be a challenge.
Yeah, and it's what I like going along what you're saying with the web design piece is that sometimes we get fixated on the logos, the colors, the feel, and like and really what you're trying to do is like that should come, especially if you're new to market. You really want to build that positioning piece and let the brand start kind of like evolving itself, because what you come to market as your brand today is going to probably be different 12 months from now, 18 months from now, because you'll start learning more about what people are saying about your product and service, and you're willing to make a shift. And that's okay. Like you're supposed to do that. Yeah. Like, like you should be evolving. And if it's sooner than 12 to 18 months, that's even better, because the marketplace is telling you like, hey, we like you, but we like this more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great point in today's day and age of like consumer behavior, how people are searching for new brands, how they do their research and find out that is changing so much. And so kind of evolving with that, and like you said, kind of having a baseline of like how you want to be perceived, what your brand is, but then you got to be willing to adapt to like, well, what are we listening? Like, what are people asking for? And can we adapt to provide that, so that we're like kind of elevating ourselves and positioning ourselves better in the market?
Yep. No, I definitely agree. I love that.
With your position, do you find, is that something that you help coach people into kind of,
Yeah, it's actually a big piece of the services that I offer when I come into startups and scale ups, because the thing is that you've already established product market fit. People are buying your product and services, and now is it at a high demand? Not necessarily, but you're getting momentum. The founder is like, we got a groove, we got something going. Things are working, but things are a little crazy. We don't really know. Like what hill we're willing to die on. We don't really have an enemy that we're going after. And when I say enemy, I don't even say like that's what hurts your business. So when I engage with clients, we start developing these things. We have a framework that we lay out and say, okay, let's see how we want to be perceived. And we'll start discussing and having touch points of what they want, but we'll start unpacking that, because that's the surface level. That's just getting things, from the beginning. That becomes the angle that we take for our messaging. That becomes the angle that we take for our communications, for sales enablement, for pitches, for decks. Like that is huge. And it's the foundation of how we go to market for everything else. And it's hard to be successful if you don't take the time to build the positioning correctly. Because then all of a sudden, if you hire a salesperson that doesn't really know what the true value props are, what they're willing to die on the hill for, who their enemy is, then all of a sudden they're doing random acts of selling. And then 3 months later, you're firing that person and they're not successful. And you're saying these salespeople suck. Well, really, you didn't set them up for success. You set them up for failure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so good. I feel like that kind of relays into narrative engineering, right? How you shape your story, how you intentionally make your company appear larger or more authoritative. So, can you talk a little bit about what that means for you and how you kind of apply that?
Yeah. So this is one of the hardest things in my opinion to do when you are a small company, because you don't want to, as marketers, you can twist words around and you can make them sound amazing and you're like, whoa, like that's what we're really good at doing. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to find key points and leverages that allows you to kind of like, wow, these guys are doing some really amazing things. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Ratmate, that was my role. I was at for just under 4 years as a CMO there. We were a small company and we were disrupting the industry. But what we were doing is we were timing different types of releases to the marketplace that would tell different parts of our story, as opposed to just like, here, this is all that we've done. And so what we would do is we would run a press release. And did it get a ton of traction? Not necessarily, but it was the idea was to build the momentum for the end of the road. And so we would have a press release. We would have supporting content that goes along with it. We would like let our email list know about this. We would have social content. We would have some blogs. We would do these different things. And then we would time another press release. And it might just seem like, well, you're just sending out press releases. No, we had reasons of what we were trying to say. That then allowed us, as people came inbound, they're like, I just saw a press release about you guys doing this. I just saw a press release that you guys acquired this company. I just saw a press release that you guys are partnering with this company. And that created opportunities for our sales team to be like, yeah, we're really big. We're doing all these things. What happens is that we're creating the story that we want them to believe coming in, as opposed to us trying to tell them the story of who we are. And so they've already developed a perception of our size. And we were a small team of like, I think, well, at the time we were doing some of this, like 25 or 30 people. So it wasn't as though we were, essentially, doing, 100 million a year, that kind of stuff. It was like we were building this engine. So it's a matter of how you drip these things out into the marketplace, and then how you kind of tell that story, and you find something in where people are kind of hanging on to that. They're like, oh, you guys are known for this. You've done this thing. Tell me more.
Yeah. Especially because people are going to all different avenues
Mm-hmm.
to before they get to us, right? Before they even get to us, before they get to a salesperson to have that conversation, there's all these other channels that are being fed to them. And so, yeah, kind of feeding in those different layers of the story and strategically, like you said, yeah, that's great. Just to kind of give them that insight from like another source, I feel like is also more impactful. Like, oh yeah, I saw you there, or oh yeah, this came up. And that's one of the things that we're trying to have that conversation with our clients, specifically when we're talking about like paid ads or SEO. And it's like it's getting more complex every
Yeah.
day, and
Yep.
we need more and more touch points. The customers need more touch points, whether it's, depending on the industry and the company and where the customers are. It's like through their social channels. Are they getting cited in these AI search engines now? And it's just really having to think about that and being visible, but also trying to control that narrative as much as you can. And as from the company standpoint, they're the ones that are setting that narrative, or at least
Ex-
kind of leading it. I think
exactly. Yeah, no, you said it perfect. Like they're leading that narrative, and companies have more control of that than they really believe, in my opinion.
yeah,
They just need to like get a hold of it. They need to take the time to be like, what do we want people to say about us? What do we want people to remember us about? One of the things that I did at my last in-house role is that when I came in, we had like 5 or 6 online reviews on Google. Not great. By the time I left, we had like 450. And so all of a sudden, like I'm not saying that's like the one thing that makes that creates the narrative better, but that creates a reputation. Going to your point, Lauren, where they're going to these different points to look at you and research you. That's another touch point of creating that reputation, so that folks are looking like, okay, they've got a press release about this, they've got some earned media about that, they've got this going on, they've got a ton of 5-star reviews. Like They're not just a one hit wonder trying to take our money. There's some sort of story behind this, and that changes everything. So if businesses could take the time to say like, "Hey, you can shape this narrative," you just got to sit back a little bit and see how you want that story to be told about you.
Kind of hearing is it's more so not just having all these positions that you are like social proof reviews, testimonials. It's also kind of you have to take that time to really actually think it out and be strategic before you just start kind of adding noise, because I feel like that's what people are afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like instead of positioning, they're just adding noise. So how do like businesses kind of avoid that? Because they want to have all these different touch points, but to your point, they want to have an actual strategic message that's being that you can see across all these touch points, not just like, hey, we're here and we're over here and we're over there, you know?
Yeah. I think that starts with getting really dialed in on who you're going after. Because when you get even more niche down to your ideal customer, then it doesn't become more noise. It becomes where you're speaking specifically to them. Something that I've always done is I market to one person. So when I'm writing copy, when I'm creating a page, when I'm creating a strategy, I'm marketing to one person. That person has a name, has a persona, has a personality. I know everything about them. And I'm marketing to that one person, and that's it. And then that becomes like kind of like that way of not creating a bunch of noise in the marketplace. Because if you're talking to one person that is like, I believe in this, I love this, I need this, then that there's more people just like that. You're going to find more of those individuals that are just like that person. So I think it's starting on really getting dialed in, and then learning and how to speak to one person, and then understanding what those pain points are, so that you really kind of set your story apart, and it doesn't become towards like everyone's talking about this. Well, yeah, it's like water. There's like how many brands of water out there, but like the Evians of the world, or I think it's the glass bottled water, I believe. But that water, like they go to a specific marketplace, who they're going after. I wouldn't pay for that. But then you've got like Liquid Death is a great example, right? That's a
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, one of the most brilliant go to market plans I've seen in a decade.
Yeah.
Brilliant, right? Because they're going after the person that wants to go to a party and doesn't want to drink but want to look cool. So you've got this wicked awesome can that looks like you're drinking this really crazy looking beer, and it's just water, you know and so, but they found that one person they're going after. They're like, that person exists, and there is more of them.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's kind of hilarious, right? Just how crazy. Like, I don't know. I can't even remember when I realized that liquid death was just water. Like,
But like, remember that moment where you're like, this must be some really crazy drink, and you're like, wait, this is just it's just H2O. This is
yeah,
all it is.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
sparkling too. Yeah.
And sparkling. And I mean, one of the ads that they ran, I think it was like 3 years ago, they were waterboarding somebody,
Yeah.
literally waterboarding them with a liquid death can over their mouth. And because they were just kind of, I forgot what the premise was, but I was like, this is hysterical. Another one was they were shocking, like tasering somebody about comparing different waters. And like, if you can't tell the difference, then we're gonna tase you. And they're like, yeah, your water is actually way better than the other waters. But it's things like that that they found the audience who to go after, and people got behind that. So they got really dialed in. It wasn't noise. It was like, you guys are different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the play on that actually was that like all the water companies are always like, oh, we're so light and cute. Like water brings life, like la la la. And they're
Yeah,
like, no, water is deadly. Like water takes out cities. Like water will
exactly.
destroy you. And they like played on that. And it was so funny because it's a completely different angle that no other company was taking with
It,
water, you know?
exactly. And so that's really listening to the marketplace, and then that's really taking a left field kind of approach, and like, okay, we know this is what's going on. We're going to completely turn the market upside down, and we'll get a ton of attention out of this. And there's going to be some people that really love us because like we're supporting you non-drinkers, you know?
It's so good. Let's kind of move into so positioning, but how should SEO kind of support your positioning? And especially when it's around high intent search or when it maps to real pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I some of this I feel like we're
Touched
kind of mentioning already, but you know, it's just that clear messaging for us, when we're how we're communicating the brand and the company, and when we're trying to, like, yes, optimize their website, get them more visible in these searches. Is it in the right searches? Does it align with, the kind of customer that they're going after? Because if it's not, and it's just irrelevant, that's just additional noise for the company to have to deal with. And if they're getting irrelevant or bad quality leads coming in, that's just taking up more time than kind of that focus, like dialed in focus on getting in those like really quality leads where they convert better, and it's like more time efficient. And on whatever scale, like whatever company that we're working with, it's like, whether you've got like a one salesperson or like 10 salespeople, that's still that conversation that we're having with the business owners is, you know you don't want to waste the time of the salespeople, and we're trying to like get that highest ROI from whatever they're putting into their marketing. So for us, having those really detailed conversations right at the beginning of like really understanding how they differentiate, where they're trying to be, the customers they're trying to go after, and then like how can we just help elevate that and get them in front of the right people.
Yeah, I love that. I would something that I've learned over the years, and I think I came across this probably from another SEO expert. So it's just more of as you write content, you're writing content for different stages in your funnel. So you might write content that is like only gets like, I don't know, a half dozen page views in a month, but the people that are getting on that page very dialed, like they typed in a very specific type of phrase or query that got them to that page. And then when they get to sales, like they don't need to know the whole pitch. They're like, look, I already know this and this, you do this. I need to just check this other two boxes. Can you do these two things? And so like it's important to kind of meet the buyer in that buying journey. It's no different from running paid ads, where you're running, just cold ads, and then you're running retargeting ads, and you're doing that. So you're kind of building your tofu, mofu, and bofu at different stages. And I think that's like going back to what you were saying, is like that's kind of where I think there's value there is knowing that, hey, we get to someone at this page, these people are going to be so dialed in. Like we're talking very technical things that not everyone talks about.
Yeah. And we have so many tools available to us now to kind of get that data of like, okay, once you start getting some visibility and you start getting some data behind, whether it, the various pages, then dialing it in even more. Okay, what are the specific things that people are searching for that we can kind of, just elevate the content even further.
Yeah.
Um, I know one of the things that we're seeing a lot of with these AI driven searches is like really specific, longer kind of phrases.
Mm-hmm.
And so really trying to, and we all see it when we use AI for looking something up, is you start with something, right? You start with a question or something, and then you build on it. Well, what about this? And you kind of go down like a certain direction. And so, it's something also to consider as well, like building out the content is following some of that journey of
Yep.
those next steps of like, okay, well, I've got this answer now. What about this? What about this? And
The breadcrumb approach, if you will.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love it. Love it.
And that's so true, like you were saying as well, Javier. When you are reaching people in those places, they tend to be a lot more qualified. They tend to already know what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of reducing that friction because they just want kind of the proof that you already are doing what you said and what they found out and believed you to do. So it's a lot less explaining and proving yourself. Like what do you think shifts then for brands when they move from chasing unqualified leads or going after everyone and kind of owning that defined space, speaking to those people that directly are looking for what they have to offer?
So I would actually take a step back on that a little bit. I would let everybody know that about 4% of the people that come inbound that come searching for your product or service are actually in market to buy. And so 96% of those folks are probably 3 months out of the, out 6 months out, a year, so you're not going to convert all of that. And even if you're so dialed in, like it's been proven. I learned this concept from a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. If you haven't read that book, an amazing book. It's a sales book, but it's a marketing sales book. Like every top marketer needs to read that book. Okay. It changed my life literally on how I kind of market and sell from a digital standpoint because of how Chet kind of laid things out. And he kind of had a concept here is that you got about 4% of the people are going to buy. And then you've got this like other layer, which is I think, 20% I think he had, or 30% of like these people know about that they need something from you, but they don't know if it's from you or somebody else. So they're kind of in market, but they're kind of figuring it out. And then there's like another layer, it's a pyramid essentially. And so if you look at it like that and you think about that, you need to understand the way you've created your funnel. You're only going to be converting roughly those 4% to potential business. And then the other 96%, it's a matter of how you create that trust. And so that journey is different touch points. It's not like emailing them every single day. It's giving them different, breadcrumbs, different, tidbits of information. Kind of what Lauren, you were saying is like having them go down that list of like, hey, did you know about this? So they learn to buy from you and say like, you are the solution. I remember having a transaction take place. This was a couple of years ago where the person came in, I want to say, I don't know, like a year ago. And we had a Halloween or Halloween email go out. It was a silly Halloween email. Like, we're like, wrap your car in Halloween design. Like no one is going to do that in real life. But we had some examples of people actually having like Halloween themed wraps on their cars. And we had a person that literally was in our database for over a year and then literally bought off of that email, paid $5,000 to get a full wrap on their vehicle. My point is that like that never would have happened if we didn't have these breadcrumbs and touch points of like just letting them learn about our trust points. And so I feel as though a lot of times sales teams are like, well, everyone needs to convert. Like, when was the last time you whipped out your credit card and just bought something the first time you saw it? Like you don't do that. Now, there's some of us that do. We're buyers in heat at times, but it's a process, and so we have to just acknowledge that. So that's kind of how I would look at it: is just take a slight step back and then work your way back to that where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, that's so good. I feel like if you even think about it, right, for yourself personally, how do you buy? That just makes common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that pain point too, one of the things you hear in like sales or like, I know I did a sales training a few years ago, and it's all about the pain point, the pain point, the pain point. What's the pain point of the customer? And often they don't know it, or like how strong is that pain or struggle that they're having. And sometimes it's that, like you said, that journey of once they get to that point of like, oh, okay, now I'm ready. Now I see that this is painful enough to convert. And some of that is based on like that information that's being fed to them,
Yeah,
and strategically and different points that they could be thinking about. So
I love
yeah.
that. You irritate a pain to the point where it can't be like, it's just like I need this to be taken away. That's what you need to do. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So good. Oh,
No, I mean, I would say like the one thing I would probably just put out there is don't take when you're learning these strategies, learn how you can model that for your business, because that's the most important part. Is a lot of the times companies come in and it's like, well, that's not going to work for me. Like, well, no, it will. You just got to model it. You just got to like take elements of it and implement that into what your current business situation is, because everyone is doing a spin-off of the same thing. I promise you. No one is reinventing the same. Like the marketing plays that you guys are running are the same marketing plays that I'm running. I'm just running it at a different position, a different company. It's just the same play, but we're just repackaging it.
What I'm sure clients will ask you this a lot when you start this journey of trying to get them on the right track, or if it's just that they want to grow faster or whatever. What do you tend to say to them, like timeline wise, of just starting that process and then being ready? Like, how ready are you to kind of adapt and adjust, and how long does that process? I'm just curious how long that process usually takes.
I would say to get things going. So it takes about a month to build out the plan of what I try to do. So like when I go to engage with clients, we build out an audit. It becomes where we have like a 90-day go to market plan. So there's a lot of stuff that's involved. I'm not going to go into detail what the audit's what it does, but that becomes like our go to market strategy. And then the goal is roughly 3 to 4 months to get all this stuff implemented and actually running. And this is it's literally we're hands just going crazy on this to get this thing going. And then I would say another 2 to 3 months to start seeing momentum. So you should see the effects of what you're building within those first 3 months, because you're also, as the plan is being designed, you're also putting quick wins and victories that you can say like, see, this is working. See, this is working, because you want the victories to not just like mentally shift your mind, but also shift the company in a different direction as well too. So it's kind of like a two-pronged approach. Like we need to stimulate the brain and be like, this is working. I believe in this. I'm going to keep putting more fuel to this. And we're building this other piece. And this is going to be for 3 to 6, 12, 18 months down the road. And we're doing it because of this. So it's not just one or the other. It's those things. And so I love to just find the quick wins. Be like, okay, this is where we're missing on this. And sometimes it's just like, let's just make a better follow-up campaign. It can be as simple as that. And it sounds silly, but like that, you can make a lot of money on follow-up campaigns, So those are some things that, I would suggest.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing.
That's great. That kind of goes into the last thing because we like to leave our listeners with something actionable, right? So if they can improve one thing about their positioning a month, because a lot of business owners they have a lot going on, so they're like, just give me something small that I can start with. What would you like tell them to focus on, or what would you recommend?
I would recommend finding a way in how you can create your own enemy. And it sounds weird. It sounds crazy, but you can create an enemy and you build that internally first within your company. But you have to ideate this. You have to brainstorm this. It can't just be like anything. A great example is Donald Miller. You're probably familiar with him. Story brand. His enemy is noise. That's his enemy. That's like literally like you're like, wait, you're telling me like the enemy is literally noise? It's noise. Because he's all about clarity, about being as clear as possible on how you communicate to your audience, what you're trying to solve. So his enemy as a company is noise. And so he brings clarity to his customers, he brings clarity to his team. Like that's the idea. You want to take it as simple as that. And so, for myself, like I said, is random acts of marketing. Don't just do a social post. Don't just send out an email. Like there should be a strategy behind that. So I would find a way of finding an enemy that you're fighting against. No matter what your space is, there is an enemy, and so that all of a sudden creates a movement. Because if you have your internal team believing in this movement that you've created, then it's easier to implement that to your rest of the market, because the rest of the team internally are behind it. They are all over it. They become your advocates. They become the people that are willing to literally die on the hill for that. And then they want to like, well, we have to tell everybody about this because this, no one should ever experience this. That becomes an easier sale from not just the phones, but it also becomes an easier sale from like digitally what you're reading. And that just changes on how you are going to position yourself to the market overall. And so you don't nearly have to like say like, this is our enemy, boom. You build the momentum, you build the story. Like, have you ever felt like this? And how did this make you feel? And what kind of like, what kind of emotions did this pull out? Like literally the infomercial experience. You should never experience eggs sticking to your pan. That is uncalled for. Like it's that experience. And so when you create that enemy, you all of a sudden change the game of how you communicate to your audience.
I love what you say about, getting, employees in your internal team behind it. I think that's so important. And I also think that also help they're your marketing tools too. If everyone like internally is sort of aligned, then
Mm-hmm.
when they're kind of, on their LinkedIn and connecting with new people and what they do or going to events or whatever it is, that's just, that is a great way of like organically spreading your brand and, what your like core thing is that you do and you stand behind. I think that is really key, and that's something that even we're seeing in these with the AI world of just being mentioned, just getting these like mentions across the internet. It's not always just that like press release or these guest posts or backlinks, but just
Mhm.
getting these mentions. And if like the employees and they're kind of creating this brand for themselves, and
Yes.
it aligns with like the company that they work for, that just like builds like a stronger overall brand for the company.
Oh, evangelists like that in your company internally is huge.
Yeah.
I really believe that that is it can make your company stand apart from everybody else. It also starts from the CEO or the founder. It has to start from there. It has to start from the top, and then creating that encouragement where you get rid of this whole like, well, if they build a brand for themselves, they might leave me. If you create the environment that they want to be in, they're not going to leave you. And if they do, you should champion them because like they're getting better, they're improving, and so I love what you're saying about that. Like creating the evangelists are just it's so imperative to create. It's just being different because at the end of the day, we all know this. We buy from people. I don't buy from like a product. I buy products, but I buy from the people. I buy from the emotions that make me change the way like I believe in that.
This has been really great. Thank you for that practical tip away. So, like we were talking about, positioning isn't just about sounding impressive, it's about being unmistakable. And when your narrative and your proof and your visibility, they all start to align, your growth starts to become more predictable. So, I just want to thank you, Javier, for being on the show today, for sharing some of these insights. If you want to share maybe your LinkedIn or how people could reach out to you, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
definitely. No, I thank you again for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun. I love diving into this sort of thing. So thank you for the opportunity. I hang out on LinkedIn all the time, so you can literally just search Javier Lozano Jr. I think I'm the only one that's a Javier Lozano Jr. But if not, you'll find me. It's so I'm on there all the time. Connect with me, DM me. Like I am active. I'm not just one of those kind of like you send me a message. I'm like, who the heck are you? And then you could also go to my website at bouldermediasolutions.com. Boulder, as in like you're bold in your marketing. That's kind of how we approach our strategies. And so there's some cool stuff on there. I've got a newsletter on there if you want to sign up and learn a little bit more about some of my tactics and strategies I implement. These are literally actionable things. Otherwise, those are the two places. But again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Javier, so much. And also to our listeners, if you're looking to stand out with your website as well in crowded market, you can visit thedigital.com to learn more about how we help our clients and what we provide as well. And don't forget to subscribe for more conversations on digital growth and strategic branding. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Javier. And thank you to our listeners. Bye.